Hi, Rich Friesen with Rich's Reframes. Now, today I'm going to reframe climate change. You heard right. Now, you're right to ask, how is Rich Friesen, with only a philosophy and psychology academic training, with very limited math skills, going to reframe just the complexity of climate science? Well, audacious, chutzpah, arrogant, Don Quixote. These are the first words that come to my mind, and maybe even yours. Now, normally it takes me about 10 minutes to reframe a major cultural belief, but this is one might take a bit longer. But the payoff is going to be great. Peace of mind, and it's worth it. Now, my unique skill is separating emotional contagion from reality. With 4 decades as a floor trader, a managing partner of a successful arbitrage firm, and a consultant to hedge funds and money managers, I've gained insight into improving the belief systems. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open a door and invite you to a path that not only reduces man's ecological footprint, but gives you some peace of mind at the same time. Now, by the end of this video, you will have a better understanding of the complexity of climate science, the scientific process, predicted climate outcomes, how our brain handles just uncertainty, and why shift from certainty to risk reduction. And finally, reducing climate risk while at the same time expanding the human condition. Audacious? Indeed. But that's what Rich's Reframes are famous for. Well, first, we reframe climate change by understanding its complexity. In fact, there's a field of science called complexity, which studies non-linear systems. A complex adaptive system is a network of just interactions that are continually impacting each other. The results cannot be predicted by the behavior of each of the components separately. So let's back up. What do we know about complex adaptive systems? Well, Stephen Wolfram wrote a book, groundbreaking book in 2002, A New Kind of Science. And in it, he created tiny systems that produced complexity. He created images of a single cell at a time. Each cell had a rule that determined its color by the color of the previous cells above it. This particular diagram you see behind me is produced by Rule 30. Now, the bottom rule there shows the rules for each cell. The color of the single lower cell is determined by the color of the combination of the 3 cells above it. Now, it turns out with this simple system, you can't predict the outcome of the figure. Knowing the rules for each cell does not give the computer the ability to create linear programs that produce the results. This phenomenon is called computation irreducibility. Even sophisticated computers and softwares are not able to outrun the program to see what it's going to do. The only way to get the result is just to allow the program to run itself. Now, you got to remember, this program is just a few lines of code in a very contained environment. But the climate is even more complex. This image behind me is just a gross simplification. The climate has hundreds of variables, not just the 8 from the previous Rule 30. Not only does it have vertical inputs from prior inputs, but real-time horizontal inputs that are constantly in flux and continual feedback cycle. If we can't predict the outcome of Rule 30 with linear computation, how are we going to predict the outcome of a climate that is thousands or millions or even trillions of times as complex, and make predictions for what's going to happen 10 and 20 years from now? The leading authority on climate change is the IPCC, IPCC, or the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. It evaluates its own computer models in Chapter 9, page 824 of Evaluation of Climate Models from 2018. And I quote, "Climate models of today are in principle better than their predecessors. However, every bit of added complexity, while intended to improve some aspect of simulated climate, also introduces new sources of possible error and uncertain parameters, and new interactions between these models' components that may, if only temporarily, degrade the model simulation of other aspects of the climate system. Furthermore, despite the progress that has been made, scientific uncertainty regarding the details of many processes remain." Now, does this level of uncertainty make headlines? No. The media reports scare headlines. From the Scientific American, "A scary year for climate change. Scientists warn about the climate change have intensified over the last 12 months. Will world leaders finally listen?" The 4 UK quality newspapers all ran front page headlines conveying a message of rising anxiety, final warning, worse than we thought, new fears on climate raise heat on leaders, and only man can stop climate change disaster. And all 9 newspapers introduced one or more of the adjectives: catastrophic, shocking, terrifying, devastating, in their various qualifications of climate change. Yet none of these words exist in the report, nor were they used in the scientists' presentations in Paris. Interesting. But wait, you say, 97% of scientists agree that humans have an adverse impact on our climate, and we're just heading to this just cataclysm if we continue our current rates of atmospheric discharge. This meme is well known and regarded as absolute capital T truth by my friends and most people in this country. But under examination, that is effectively disputed. Now, even though disputed, I don't want to get into a debate about the percentage of climate science that believe what. If I dispute your core belief, I'll lose credibility. And we have bigger fish to fry. So, stay to the end. I have a very pleasant surprise for my climate catastrophe friends. So let's just assume for a moment that the 97% claim is true. So the question is science a democracy and truth a consensus? Well, going back in history, we know that scientists have had consensuses on theories that we no longer believe. Scientists once believed that the earth was flat, all through the 6th century. All scientists believe in the Ptolemaic theory that the earth was the center of the universe, but then Copernicus discovered that actually the sun was the center of the universe, and Galileo was put on trial for believing this nonsense. Evolutionary scientists believed in the inherited, acquired characteristics. Doctors believed bloodletting was a cure for illness for 2,000 years. Aristotelian physics was replaced by Newtonian physics, then relativity. And now there are several new theories being advanced. Global cooling was updated by global warming. The universe was static, but is now expanding. But isn't it wonderful that we are the generation? We were born at the perfect time when absolute truth is known and will be the absolute truth forever. Amazing. President Obama said that climate science is settled. But if it's settled, it's not science, it's religion. You can see my video blog on religion and the environment for how our brains prefer absolute certainty to the unknown. But 100 years from now, our beliefs will have changed several times. What we believe with absolute certainty today will be replaced with different certainties by our skeptical kids and grandkids. Science is a continual process of testing, vetting, and disproving. Science is a method and not a hard and fast conclusion. And remember, predictions of man's impact on the climate is not the result of that scientific process you see behind me, because we can't test. Climate predictions are the result of human biases put into a computer model. Now take a moment and notice your own emotional reaction to what I'm saying. Are you arguing? Are you curious? Do you think what I'm saying is blasphemy? Do you think I'm a heretic and a science denier? The intensity of your emotional reaction may indicate how much of your belief is rational and how much is cultish. Oh, I can't believe I actually said that. But wait, there's something positive at the ending of this video that you will like. So stay with me. So if climate complexity just can't be predicted by computer models and scientific consensus is, well, fallible, what would we expect to see? Well, we would expect that prior predictions were incorrect. And you can see the large difference in multiple computer models and the predictions of temperatures. This difference in the various models reflects the weight that human programmers gave to the climate variables. The red line is an aggregation of multiple computer models. Now, you'll see the blue dots and the green squares at the bottom. These are actual temperatures taken by two different methods. Now, the gap between the actuals and the predictions are further reminders of the challenge of software and using software models as predictions. Do you remember ozone holes? Do you remember acid rain, peak oil? If we view just the scary headlines, we can see that not just a few, but all catastrophic predictions have been wrong so far. Now, if computer change is a computer model with high levels of uncertainty, then that allows us all to project our own biases. Climate change is a Rorschach test of our underlying mindset. How your mindset is biased is easily demonstrated by your political affiliation. That's right. All my left-leaning progressive friends believe that we're creating a climate crisis that will have a devastating impact on the earth and civilization. All my libertarian and conservative friends believe that humans' impact on the climate is small and can be managed with time. So if beliefs were driven by science and logic, you would expect that climate skeptics and true believers to be evenly divided politically. But the distribution is not just not uneven, it's dramatic. And the chart behind me is my own personal best guess about the correlation between political beliefs and climate predictions. You can see that there is just very little overlap. So, does politics determine your science? I postulate there is something deeper that drives both your politics and climate science conclusion. The reasons we hold onto our climate beliefs are not science-based, but psychologically based. And yes, this includes me. My libertarian and conservative friends, they value their personal freedom. They're just terrified that climate change is the Trojan horse that will lead to massive economic upheaval, socialism, a reset of our traditions, and a loss of personal freedom. The proclamations of progressives certainly trigger this deeply held fear. As a result, the libertarians are on the alert to disprove that man is impacting the climate and are labeled climate skeptics. My good-hearted progressive friends value community and caring. They believe we are at a critical juncture for the earth and the human race. They want to be part of something that matters, that is bigger than the individual. And they cling to any weather disaster as proof the climate models are correct. Both sides argue the validity of climate science is a proxy for either freedom or redemption. Climate science provides the stadium for both sides to express their deepest fears and longing in a game that has consequences for all of us. What if, and this is a really big if we recognize our own biases and just appreciate the uncertainty of human impact on the environment, what are we left with? Well, here's the payoff of this video. We can then move to risk reduction. This is where my experience as a floor trader, managing partner of a trading firm, and a therapist for professional money managers pays off. There are times when market behaviors are in a pattern, and investments can be placed with a risk to reward expectations. And there are times when the patterns are just broken and predictions no longer apply. At these times, we move from predictive analysis to risk reduction. As we let go of our confidence in computer calculations, we can replace it with a risk reduction model. And the more uncertain the outcome, the better we are off with risk reduction. My climate catastrophe friends agree and say we need to mitigate risk by doing everything possible and no cost spared. Our entire way of life needs to be changed just in case. My conservative and libertarian friends say we need to preserve our way of life, our traditions, and the economic benefits of the free market. We need to do everything we can to reduce cultural and economic risk. But what if we reduce the risk of anthropogenic human-caused climate catastrophe with minimal cost? Would it be acceptable to take the sacrifice out of environmental responsibility? I ask my climate catastrophe friends, what if there were a solution without sacrifice? Their hesitancy tells me that sacrifice is part of their climate mindset. Without sacrifice, some meaning is removed from the environmental movement. Over the last decade, there have been new advances in nuclear power. These brand new technologies are very different from the design of the 60s. However, our collective mindset, it's still driven by 3 Mile Island, Chernobyl, and even Fukushima. But what if? Imagine for a moment, what if new nuclear technology was able to safely just mitigate climate risk without much sacrifice? I believe we're just on the verge of that shift. And here is what's cool. Each of us has the power to move that shift forward. You can be a catalyst that will make the world a better place and possibly reduce climate catastrophe. Now, here's what you can do personally without much effort. First, research new nuclear power technologies for yourself. Now, you don't have to have all the answers, but be open to the potential. There are several links I provide to start the search. Next, when in a climate conversation, just mention that you've been reading about new nuclear power technology that is CO2 free, is safe, and is interesting because it's just so different from the previous designs. Pause. Just let your reaction be. You don't have to argue or disagree with the response. Just let it lie there. If there is a negative reaction, you can just say that you found the new technology interesting. Now, here is the electrifying power of this approach, both literally and figuratively. What if the person hearing this has now heard the same comment from 3 different trusted people who are environmentally conscious. Nobody wants to be left out of a major mindset shift of their peer group, and you have now seeded their minds with the ability to be open to new solutions. I believe we are just at this tipping point, a major shift in the zeitgeist, where a wonderful openness to creative thinking can start to take place. More and more people will adopt a creative and solution-oriented way of thinking, and this could just accelerate. New solutions will provide sustainable, low-risk energy with manageable costs that allow for the expansion of human growth, while at the same time shrinking our ecological footprint. Shrinking it even more than just acres and acres of solar panels that have to be discarded somewhere and bird Cuisinarts. Now, even if this makes rational sense, my climate catastrophe friends have one more barrier, and that's a mindset barrier. I'm going to speak to you directly. Are you willing to give up sacrificing as a way of gaining meaning in your life? Are you willing to give up restraint as a righteous position? For some of you, these questions are crazy. But from my own clinical experience, I know that some of us attach meaning to both sacrifice and righteousness. And if these mindsets remain in place, there's just no landing place for creativeness. As long as we just absorb fear from headlines and feel that fear, we're not able to be creative. This video invites you to step out of fear and into creativity. If nuclear power can both reduce the risk of catastrophic climate change and allow us to be powerful, dynamic, growing as a country, is that okay? Please give this some thought to the deeper meaning of being green. Please give some thought to any resistance that you feel of being unapologetically powerful. This is a solution that Greens, conservatives, libertarians, and even those who don't care about politics, we can all agree. Once we lose our old associations with that old technology, new nuclear power plants, we can adopt them and we can all take a breath of fresh, clean air, knowing that the generations that follow us will be proud that we were able to overcome our biases and save the planet.